Hello, I'm Leo. I'm Israeli, and I want to tell you why I know for a fact that the crucifixion of Jesus didn't happen. Okay, I have some bad news for you. All right. So the book that I'm reading is it's called The Antiquities of the Jews. It was written by Josefus Flavius. So Josefus Flavius lived about 2,000 years ago. He lived in Judea, and he lived about a generation after Jesus supposedly lived. Okay, he was active mainly in the year 60, 70. He participated in the Jewish rebellion against the Roman, the big revolt that started in 66 and ended in 72, resulted in the destruction of the second temple in Jerusalem, and with the deportation of about 100,000 Jews to other parts of the Roman Empire. So he lived in about the same time of Jesus, and also he lived in about the same time of some of the people that considered to be the writers of the Gospels are said to be lived. Talking about the year 60, 70, he wrote this book when he was already in exile in Rome. He was caught by the Romans during the revolt, and eventually he was exiled to Rome. Over there, he wrote this book in order to explain the Romans what the Jews are, their history, and so on. Now, the thing is that his way of writing is very, very like long. He writes things in detail, way too much details, okay? Things that you can really put in one sentence, he's writing like entire pages. But then there is one section that everybody is saying that he didn't write that, it was actually put. And this is one section that actually talking about Jesus, all right? I'm gonna read it to you, and it's very uncharacteristic. All right, so I'm going to read to you. It's from the book 18, chapter 3. I'm gonna read it to you. Okay, all right. So bear in mind. Okay, so he's saying something in chapter 3, in section 3 of chapter 3. He's saying something like that. Okay, so now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. For he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over of him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pontius Pilatus, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared for them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets has foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day. All right. So this specific section it's kind of funny because first of all, what prophecy foretold that he will come on the third day doesn't exist on the Hebrew Bible, doesn't exist in this book that is basically repeating the narrative of most of the narrative of the Hebrew Bible, and also 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. What are you talking about? All right. So this section is actually very weird in comparison to other parts. I'm going to read to you two sections before that of the same chapter, talking about Pontius Pilatus. Okay, so and this is just to show you how he writes. Now, notice that he doesn't tell you when the crucifixion happened. He doesn't tell you where, okay, and he doesn't tell you why. All right, so he could actually write the same narrative of the Christian Bible in very great details, but he does not, because maybe I don't know, he doesn't know about that. Okay, all right, but I give you an example of how he writes about Pontius Pilatus in very, very much details to show you that basically it's very possible 99.9% that section 3 of chapter 3 in book 18 about Jesus was not written by Josefus Flavius. It was actually added by a Christian translator of the book. All right. So I'm going to read the first section of chapter 3, saying something like that. But now Pilate, the procurator of Judea, removed the army from Caesarea to Jerusalem to take their winter quarters there, in order to abolish the Jewish laws. So he introduced Caesar effigies, which were upon the ensigns, and brought them into the city, where our law forbid us the very making of images. On which account the former procurators were wont to make their entry into the city with such ensigns as has not those ornaments. Pilate was the first who brought those images to Jerusalem and set them up there, which was done without the knowledge of the people, because it was done in the night time. But as soon as they knew it, they came in multitude to Caesarea, and interceded with Pilate many days that he would remove the images. And when he would not grant their request, because it will tend to the injury of Caesar, while yet they preserve in their request, on the 6th day he ordered his soldiers to have their weapons privately, while he came and sat upon his judgment seat, which seat was so prepared in the open place of the city, that it concealed the army that lay ready to oppress them. And when the Jews petitioned him again, he gave a signal to the soldiers to encompass them routed, and threatened that their punishment should be no less than imminent death, unless they would leave off disturbing him and go their way home. But they threw themselves upon the ground and laid their necks bare, and said they will take their death very willingly, rather than the wisdom of their laws should be transgressed. Upon which Pilate was deeply affected, with their firm resolution to keep their laws inviolable, and presently command the images to be carried back from Jerusalem to Caesarea. All right, so this is one section about Pilate, but notice how there's so much details, like really, really small details, and this is what is actually one of the signature of Josefus Flavius. He was a Jewish writer in the 1st century. That's the way he wrote, okay? So, but if you compare that to the section about Jesus, it's very different. You must admit that it's very different, because it's very full of details, very, very small details, basically. And he couldn't just write it, basically saying it. So Pilate was very bad. He brought those images of Caesar to Jerusalem. The Jews were angry, and he tried to kill them. And then they told him that they would rather die than having those images in Jerusalem. And then he said, oh, you know what? Okay. So I won't bring the images to Jerusalem, okay? So he could have just, because this is basically what he writes about Jesus in many ways, yeah, sort of, yeah? So because, Josefus Flavius, the person that writes on every single details, when he comes to talk about Jesus, supposedly the Messiah, he doesn't say when the crucifixion happened, where, who. Basically the entire story is putting it in, is really just putting it like in, I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, less than 10 lines in English. That's all about Jesus. There's more about Pilatus than Jesus, okay? So if this was really like what he thought, that he is Christ, that he is Jesus, he would write much more and write in details. But obviously it was not written by him. And this is why I know for a fact that the crucifixion never happened.